This podcast is supported by 23andMe.ca, a personalized genetic service available in Canada. 23andMe reports provide genetic information based on a small saliva sample. Canadians can learn about their genetic information that published studies have associated with conditions and traits like celiac disease, cystic fibrosis, and even response to certain medications. More information is available at 23andme.ca.
Welcome to the BS Show. Are you ready to shoot the... The BS Show would like to thank their sponsors. Jack Cameron, accredited mortgage professional. Jack can show you the way home. Graco Impact Sports, providing top quality combat sport equipment tested and used by all levels of athletes. Dominate your world. RepoSales.ca, specializing in vehicle and equipment recovery, liquidation, and sales. Hemmings House Pictures, the global movement media makers, helping tell your brand story to the world and accelerate the momentum of your movement. Farmbox Films, capturing stories the way you want to remember them.
See, we're completely lost here without Boyd to come in and say, hello, fellow humans, or whatever it is he says. Skip, are you with me? I guess we lost Skip. Hello, everybody. This is Rick Doyle.
Greetings,
hello.
Earthlings. Isn't that what he says?
No, he says something nerdier than that. It's, I think it's fellow humans or something like that.
Does he say live long and prosper?
No, that would be too cool for him to say. What are you saying there, Skip?
Hey, I want to welcome everyone to the BS Show. I'm going to tell you right now, Rick threw a vicious rear naked choke on Boyd about 20 minutes ago, and we can't wake him up, so I'm going to fill in for Boyd tonight. I told Rick he didn't realize how strong he was, and now he understands that his strength is godlike.
Yeah, blow up that ego a little bit. That's what everybody needs. All jokes aside, Boyd Sharpe is absolutely swamped on the home front and on his work right now, and he's got so many projects on the go. He just simply couldn't do this tonight, and I really don't want to see this whole project die, this whole show die, because I think we're on to something really good here. So I don't know shit about anything, but I figured, okay, Smoked the Bowl, gave Skip a call and said, let's get on here, man. Let's just shoot the shit for a while and keep this thing going and see what happens. So thanks a lot for joining me tonight, brother.
Hey, always my pleasure. You know, I've been a fan of yours from day one. I will continue to be for some time, and I want to start off the show by thanking all the great sponsors, and I know most of them, so if I missed any of them, I apologize, but let's start out with Acadian Fish and Chips, Agrophotography, Farmbox Films, RepoSales.ca. Is it Wilson's Metal or Wilson's like Titanium? One of those, right?
It's Wilson's Titanium. Yeah, it's owned by Jerome Wilson. Yeah, great supporter of local MMA.
Yeah, you guys check them out. And then we've also got Hemmings House. You guys, enough said. Those guys are legit masters, man. You guys check them out. Check out everything they do. Jack Cameron, somebody that we know is a massive supporter of the grappling arts throughout your part of Canada and probably beyond if he could. Also, Graco Impact Sports. You know I got mad love for them boys, James and Eric and Ian. They're all great guys over there at Graco. So I think I got all the sponsors. Did I miss any?
No, brother. That's all of it. And it is heartfelt thanks for all the support that they do show us. I want to go back to Graco just for a sec, because before we went on air, you were telling me, Skip, that you were just running ragged. Those guys go above and beyond, don't they?
Yeah, they helped us outfit a bunch of 32 fighters down in the Philippines. These kids live in poverty. And while you guys were on your break, this all finally came together, and, we really got to start delivering. But what we did is we got together with a group called the Goat Locker Boxing Gym. It's a bunch of ex-naval officers who went down to the Philippines, which is their ethnicity, and opened up a local nonprofit gym for kids who live in poverty. This way they have a place to train and a way to get out of poverty. So what they do is they cover rent, food, vouchers, and transportation to and from the gym. We threw in gear thanks to Draco and Bushido, Mixed Martial Arts Fight Gear Company. They came together, and honestly, I can't give you an exact number, but I'm going to say everything all entailed, it's about $10,000 worth of gear that they gave us to give out. And we had extra, so we've given out another 17 kids have gotten gear. So, basically 50 kids have gotten gear due to that company, not living in the local area, which is, as well as I do, a lot of sponsors try to promote local because that's their best chance to reap the reward. But these guys said, hey, screw it. Philippines, that's not far enough for us to say no. So they stepped up, man, and Ian, James, and Eric are monsters. I got mad love for them, and they took good care of you guys as well.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this because at first glance it may not be the best business decision, but it's certainly the most moral decision, and it's something you don't see in business every day. So tell me a little bit more about this school that's set up then. So how many students would they have at any one time?
Right now they have 32 scholarship kids and probably another 100 kids that pay to train, but the scholarship program kids are who we help. They go anywhere from age 14 to 37. There is professional points karate, professional and amateur boxing, professional and amateur MMA, professional amateur Muay Thai as well. All those, and they just started doing that Jindengo, the stick fighting inside the cage, the old Filipino style stick fighting. They started a tournament with that, so they support everything. And how this works is these guys cover the bills so these kids can train, and that's the whole thing. Is they give them the best chance to become a professional and make money so that they can move out of poverty.
Really?
This is their way to give back. And Ferdy and the boys opened up a promotion called Underground Battle, and all the proceeds go to helping support the gym and the sponsored athletes. So it's an amazing program. You guys can find it up on MMAmadhouse.com, the whole article, all the information to find these guys, pictures of the gyms and the students and the sponsors. And these guys turned around and put Bushido's logo, Draco's parent company, on every cage for every event since they teamed up. So the last 3 events, there's been a Bushido logo down in the Philippines, and they put Bushido right above the quarter panel on the dragster they sponsor.
Fantastic, man. I mean, really, these guys do go above and beyond. We've seen that. So when folks out there, whether you're a fighter or you train or you're a gym owner looking to pick some things up, keep these guys in mind. Give them some thought because they do give a tremendous amount back to the community. So at least consider them, give them some thought, and think about what they do for overall MMA. So when you go to order things.
And let me be honest with you guys. I've been contacted by a ton of gyms, and there's a young man by the name of Billy Boo from Boo Jitsu down in San Antonio, Texas, New Braunfels area. He called them after getting some free gear for some of his students through me for his gym, because he opened a new gym. He called Eric, I know, and set up an account, and he's looking to outfit his whole gym, and they have treated him like they grew up together. That's what I found so interesting is, I understand the donation and caring for the community, but when a sale comes through, and in a major sale, they could easily just be like, yep, okay, that's this much. That he sat down and talked with them. They sat down and got to know them, and they're working together, and hopefully they work a great deal. But these guys took to them like they were old friends. They weren't like, who are you? You're from the States, or not. They were like, hey, how you doing? Let's talk, buddy. It was great.
That's cool, man. So what are we going to talk about tonight anyway? Because, I mean, normally Boyd spends a tremendous amount of time preparing, getting guests on and whatnot. And basically, I sit here like a boob and just listen to what's going on. So you kind of have to take the reins on this one.
Okay, well, we're going to, we're going to fast forward your education in the radio world a little bit tonight.
All right.
I used to be, scheduling fighters and then sitting down and putting together a plan of action and questions and researching this and that. Man, tonight's going to be all about just being yourself on the show, and I tell you what, you'll get great interviews that way. It's important to know who you're going to interview, but sometimes it's also important just to go with the flow, and tonight's going to be a go with the flow. So, folks, questions, comments, anything you guys want to talk about, 310-742-1799. You can tweet at Trash Canyon. That's Rick's Twitter, at the BS Show Canada, MMAmadhouse.com, or MMA Madhouse, or STP Tattoo with any questions. The lines are going to be open. We've had a couple of callers who have hung up right away. Feel free, guys. We're not going to bite your head off. We'll talk about anything. If you want to know Rick's opinion on if he could take Kurt Angle in a street fight, call and ask.
I don't know, man. He's a pretty tough guy. That guy's legit, man.
Dude, okay.
Come on. He was a gold medalist. Come on now.
Now
the guy was legit.
Somebody like you who, let's be honest, I've seen your fights when you were a pro wrestler. I've seen your fights as an MMA fighter. You've been able to taste both sides of that rope, okay? Do you personally feel that the major portion of people think that wrestlers are not as tough as a fighter?
Oh yeah. I would think that would be a common opinion. It's just two completely different worlds. So there is no comparison when it comes to that. I mean, mixed martial arts, there's no doubt. I mean, the level of training and dedication, all the techniques. I mean, these are superior athletes in every aspect, with the exception being myself, obviously. But I mean, it's a lifestyle, and it is probably as good a professional athlete or amateur athlete as you can possibly be in any sport. Your MMA fighter is going to rise to the top of that pile. And wrestling is very different for the simple fact, obviously it's entertainment, and there's a lot of work that goes into the techniques that they use and perfecting that. But what it is with wrestling, it's the punishment that your body takes night after night after night, and everybody thinks that all that shit is all choreographed. Well, you couldn't possibly choreograph all of it because you're told who's gonna win a match 5 minutes before you go out there, and that's all you really know. And so everything is done on the fly, and you take a tremendous amount of punishment. And the thing is, when you go out on a wrestling tour, you're going to wrestle the next night and the next night and the next night. And I remember when I was over in England, you could wrestle every night of the week over there, twice a day if you wanted to. If physically you could do it. There was that many shows going on. And a lot of those guys didn't even have apartments because they literally lived on the road for years at a time. It's amazing, but the injuries just accumulate. And I remember there was this guy, he looked like Dave Bautista, and I don't know what they were billing him as, the UK Warrior or something like that. But anyway, spitting image of Bautista. And anyway, this guy, every night, he was 6'5" or 6'6". He would press me over his head and then drop me. And one night I landed the wrong way, and I landed right on my tailbone. And it hurt like a son of a bitch. But the next day, when I went to take that next fall again, I kind of moved a little bit because I didn't want to get it on the tailbone. That was all bruised and sore. By the end of the week, I was so black and blue, right from the middle of my back down past my ass, it was just completely black and blue. So it's those type of injuries you have to learn to deal with. It's an incredible amount of pain, but it's different. I don't know. I babbled there. Sorry.
No. It makes sense. I totally understand what you're saying, and okay. So you guys get in there. Obviously, there's a part acting. The build up of why you guys don't like each other and all that stuff. Okay. I want to talk about the physical part, okay? Like, what are you guys doing training-wise? I grew up a wrestling fan, man. I saw Hulk Hogan wrestle King Kong Bundy and all that stuff in person, Those are the, back in the day, I grew up with the Von Erichs, all that. I know these guys, some of them looked like they were just fat slobs, and some of them looked like golden Adonises. What are you guys, what are you guys doing to keep in shape, because even a guy like Vader, who theoretically would be called obese by today's standards, he had cardio that was insane.
Yeah, it's bizarre, and everybody is different in it, and everybody just kind of finds their own niche, and they'll build their character on that, or their character develops them. It can go one of two ways, but. It's the same as MMA as far as it'll attract people from different backgrounds and different body types and the whole 9 yards, and everybody's different. So the main thing is you have to have enough cardio. Just yelling at the crowd and doing all the animated things on top of your moves, and your cardio has to be fairly good. And in some spots they have where they call a rest spot, where you're kind of just sitting down and got somebody in a hold. That gives you a chance to catch your breath there a little bit. But it's like interval training. You're in a sprint and then you stop and then you sprint and then you stop, and that's a lot what it's like. But to answer your question, everybody has their own routines. Basically, you get trained to be a pro wrestler, and you finish your program with whoever's training you, and then you're on your own. And you just basically work for nothing just to get into the ring and get some exposure, try to get your name out there, and over time you will develop your character, and hopefully your character catches on. Because the more popular you become, the more money you make. So everybody has their own training that they do. It's personal, and it a lot of times it coincides with what their character is. If that makes any sense.
It completely does. And you talked about training to become a pro wrestler. Obviously, the Diva shows out there and some of the shows they've done recently kind of glamorize it in a different aspect than probably what it really is. Like Cubicle the Cage showed a non-glorified version of, what it's like, where it's tough, makes it look like you guys jog for 5 minutes, punch for 2 minutes, and then you guys are laying by the pool drinking all night. That's not reality. Yeah. So you came into the sport probably at a more grittier, tougher time for fighters and wrestlers in that sport. How hard was the pro wrestling training when you did it?
Every generation of wrestler will say that the one that came after them are a bunch of pussies. So, when you look back on the guys that were into the business 20, 30 years ago, there were just hard men, just hard son of a bitches in pro wrestling. And, that's why when they came to a town, everybody in the town went to watch them because they looked tough and they were tough. And that has kind of gone downhill a little bit now, where I can walk into wrestling shows now and see a guy that weighs $150, and I think to myself, I could pound the shit out of that guy in 30 seconds. Why am I paying money for him to be here? But that's the thing about wrestling. It's a three-ring circus. There needs to be a niche for everybody there. But as far as the toughness goes, I don't know, man. Like, I watched some guys a couple of weeks ago from New Brunswick, and they did a ladder match, and I know that those guys took years off their life in that match. Really, some of the things they did, and when they walked in the back, they're bleeding, they're busted open, and they're banged up, and they probably weren't going to walk for a few days. So, I don't know. I think there's been tough guys all through the years, and will continue to be tough guys.
Now, I don't know if you read the interview with Chris Jericho that was running around about the night he almost got beat up by Frank Shamrock and a couple other guys.
Yeah.
At a wrestling thing. I'll be honest, he made it sound and feel like he was not a tough guy in that interview. He was like, I was literally scared, these guys could just whoop my ass. And, so that's why I asked this, because, so many people portray you guys as, glorified soap opera actors, which obviously you're not. I know the sport. I understand what you guys go through, and hopefully fans are learning that tonight. So I just wanted to pick your brain on some of that stuff, see what you thought.
I don't follow WWE at all, which, you know, that surprises some people, but I don't follow MMA either. But I watched it when I was a kid growing up, and I get into pro wrestling at a late age. Actually, I was 30, I think, when I started, and maybe a little younger. But I don't watch it on television because it's completely different than what I do. I work the independent circuit. And what they have is like what the WWE has is like the UFC. It's the lights and the cameras and the whole entertainment show. And to compare me to what they do, it's like comparing a sprinter and a marathon runner. You know, they both run, but it's a completely different thing that they do. You know, where if you watch the WWE, you have commentators that are telling you what's going on. They're telling you the story. This is the good guy, this is the bad guy, and this is what's going on. But when you do it in a local arena has 1,000 people in it, you actually physically have to tell that story to these people. So it's a little different than what I do on the independent scene. Excuse me.
So if
but
there
the
was an
battles in wrestling, the real battles in pro wrestling are done in the locker room. That's your pecking order. That's where your career is made or broken, is in the locker room. And you know, the WWE has its enforcers. They've always had them, and those are the guys that keep the law in the locker room. They make everything right. You know, and there's been heat over the years. You know, The Undertaker was a big enforcer for WWE, and he had to run in with Lesnar, and this was before they tried to glam it up a little bit. And then JBL was another one, and, you know, so, I mean, he put Cena through, beat the fucking shit out of Cena multiple times. They were trying to break that kid. But, I mean, you know, he came out on top. So the real battles of who's the tough guy is done in the locker room in wrestling. It spills over into the ring more than you'd ever imagine it does. Oh, it does spill over, you know, but most times it's done in the back room.
Now, you touched on, like, what, you know, I would call the Zuffa zombie of your sport, WWE. So you personally would prefer to go to a local, you know, like what is that, professional guerrilla wrestling down in L.A., like that small show, or, you know, maybe Mid-South Pro. You would prefer to go to one of those shows and see these fighters who maybe are able to put on a better show without all the glitz and glams versus a WWE show?
Well, I mean, I probably have a little different perspective on it than most people, because I came into it late in my life, and I was realistic about what my limitations were. I'm a small guy. I'm an old guy. So I never expected that I was going to go to the WWE. That was never a goal for me. You know, and the same as when I came into fighting. Did I think I was going to make the UFC? No, I just was here for a good time. Let's go. So that's the kind of outlook I had. But a lot of young kids, when they come into the sport, I mean, that's their pinnacle. That's where they want to go. So for me, it was a little bit different, you know, what my aspirations were. So if WWE called me and said, "Rick, do you want to do a show?" Oh, well, yeah, hell, why not? But it was never a goal for me, really. So wrestlers grade each other on their ability, their actual skill and ability, you know, at what level of worker they are. So WWE can grab a guy that looks like $1 million and is marketable and has the right look and the right body, and, you know, it's a cutout, basically, you know, and they'll take that guy and they say, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this in a match. And they tell him exactly what to do, and he does it, and it's over. Well, that's not what I consider a worker. You know, a worker goes in and he knows how to work the crowd and give them a show and give them exactly what they want and then take it away. Those are workers, and it's a very different thing than the product that WWE puts out there. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some very excellent workers in WWE, but it's not the necessity to get there that it used to be, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Like, the greatest wrestler in the world right now is Bobby Roode. bar none. He is the greatest wrestler. He's going to be here in a couple of weeks, and I know Bobby really well, and it's been a number of years since I wrestled him, but he's the TNA champ right now for pro wrestling, and he is by far the most talented wrestler in the world. Everything this guy does is technically perfect, but he's not the pinnacle of the sport, because being the best doesn't mean that you're at the top in pro wrestling, because it's entertainment, right? It's an entertainment product.
We're going to have a guest, I believe, join us. Hey, HR, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, welcome to the BS Show. You're on with the one and only Trash Canyon, Mr. Rick Doyle. I know you followed him through the Cubicle to the Cage series as well. Finally get to meet the guy, so.
Hey, Rick, how's it going?
Oh, hanging in there, brother. Having a good time. Just shooting the shit, right?
I feel privileged.
Don't, man, don't. What's happening?
Hey, John, what are you up to?
Your shows, man. I just had a good time Saturday night over in Springdale, Arkansas, covering the All-Star MMA. Them guys was first time in the cage, amateurs, and they really killed it.
So what was going on?
It was an all-star MMA event. I guess they hadn't had an event since 2009, and then they're starting to bring it back. So I went over and covered it over in Springdale. It's a pretty good show. Like I say, it was first-time amateurs stepping in the cage, and them guys, they done pretty good. Now,
so how many fights did they have on that?
They had 8 MMA and 2 kickboxing.
Really? Okay. So how big of a crowd did they draw?
Oh, gosh, there was at least, I'd say 400 maybe, 350,
Is
400.
that right? Yeah? And that would be like a pretty good crowd for that area? How big is the city?
Oh, the city's about, well, it's actually like the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
Is in Fayetteville. It like connects to Fayetteville and then Springdale, and then it's probably 20,000 population in Springdale.
So did they have the fights right on the university?
No, it was at a civic center.
Okay. Right on. And they drew, so it was the first time they had it in about 9 years. They drew about 400 people. They were pretty happy with that, I would assume.
It was a good turnout. I was really impressed with the event. It was, like I say, first-time amateurs, and them kids, they was 18, 19 years old. They got in there, and they really got after it, man.
And they put on a good show.
They put on a pretty good show, yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, HR, I got somebody wants to know, who runs that show, if you know?
Oh, his name is Reed. Oh, shit, man, I can't think of his last name. I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up and send it to you. But I know his first name was Reed.
Okay.
So what's in my mind?
What's the success factor in having these local shows? I mean, I know we've got another one coming up here in this area. What's the secret to success on these things? I mean, how do you put asses in the seats? You know, we talked about it a little bit there last time. UFC comes to town here. We put 15,000 people or 18,000 people in the hockey arena to watch the UFC, and then we have a local event which has excellent caliber of talent, and we're lucky to put 1,000 in the seats. What's the trick to it?
I'd say the promotion. I mean, get out and promote. You know, get out and have your fighters get on Facebook and promote themselves. You know, get their friends together and just promote. Just keep promoting.
Yeah, that's what I think it is too, and I don't think we've done a real good job of it in this area because I mean I come from the wrestling background, so I come from the entertainment. Christ Almighty, man, we sell a sport that isn't even a sport, like I've said before, but these guys that put on these shows know how to put on a show. Is that a necessary component to put new people in the seats for these local MMA shows? What do you think, Skip? Skip, what do you think? Because I know you're not big on the whole entertainment package.
No, look, I think for a promoter to be successful and to make it, they got to have a couple of things. One, they got to have ticket sellers. As shitty as that sounds, you got to have ticket sellers, guys who draw a crowd. Two, you got to have really good, solid matchmaking. I want to see 9 wars, not 8 first-round KOs. I've been to an event. Just recently, I drove 4 hours to an event. The event lasted 59 minutes, literally, for 11 fights. That's ridiculous. That's horrible matchmaking. Every single fight ended in the first round under 2.5 minutes. That's not good matchmaking. I will never go back to that show again. I will never have anything to do with them. I didn't like it. So you got to have solid matchmaking.
Okay, but tell me, what was the crowd reaction? Was
the crowd
reaction excited?
The crowd was, the first 2 or 3 times, yes. As the event unplayed, by the end, people were like, whatever. I mean, people were getting up and leaving because they were like, this is getting dumb.
Really?
Look, if
I've
you're
seen
gonna
that
have
happen.
If you're gonna have 8 fights and 8 finishes, make them say. I want to see 3rd round TKO. I want to see a war that goes, to the last second. The guy grabs the rear naked choke, or the guy reverses and gets an armbar with 30 seconds left, or 2 minutes into the 2nd round, these guys are slugging it out and he just gets caught. I don't want to see 3 punches and the fight's over. That's just a mismatch.
Yeah. Now, okay, so what do you got? HR, you got about 400 people that came to that show. Okay. The amateurs we know draw better than the pros. We for on the local MMA shows. Would everybody agree with that?
I kind of agree with that.
I think they do, because when you have an amateur that goes out, his family is there, Grammy and Grampy is there, all of his friends are there. I think an amateur sells more tickets than a pro that's probably got 6 or 7 fights on average.
Yeah. They got a guy up in Kansas City. He's fixing to fight on Chris Gregory's card, Stephen Graham. And I seen him fight up there several months ago at Blackout. And I tell you what, that kid, he brings a crowd with him. Half of the populated crowd is with him.
Is that right?
He promotes himself. He's a good kid. He's good. He's clean cut. He's probably going to be going pro after. I'd say probably no more than 2 more fights.
But he considers
something else.
He considers that the building of his camp and the ticket sales. He considers that part of his business. He considers that part of the total package. Is what you're saying?
Well, he trains at Glory MMA up there with James Krause and them guys. And anytime them fighters fight up there, man, they can bring the crowd.
Yeah.
But look, what about T.J. Britton? T.J. Britton is a kid from your area. This kid flew to Seattle. He flew to Seattle, 3,000 miles away from where he lives. This kid sold 9 hotel rooms, 80 tickets. 80 tickets at $25 a pop. The kid, dude. So, once again, it's about ticket sellers. Even if they don't live in your neck of the woods, sometimes you've got to bring in, somebody who is a ticket seller, who has a fan base, who could put on a fight. For me, some of the best promotions, Cage Quest, one of my favorite amateur promotions in the whole country. These guys, his last card 2 weeks ago, out of the 14 fights, 10 fighters are turning pro. That's ridiculous. And out of those 10, 8 of them were in title fights.
Wow.
So it's about the competition. Look, Eddie does a phenomenal job. He has the smoke and the music and the DJ and the ring girls and the pride, old school ramp walkout. Okay?
Yeah.
You take all that shit away, and he still has the best promotion on the Pacific Northwest for amateurs. Period. Right now, nobody can touch
it. But it is a combination of both things. There's no question about that in my mind. You have to have both of those, because if you just put in great fighters in a great matchup, okay, you're going to get all the hardcore MMA fans that normally come. I mean, you're going to get all the people from the gyms that normally come, and the hardcore fans in the area. They're going to come to that. But that's not enough. You need more than that. You need the guy that's sitting on his couch watching the UFC on whatever night they're on, eating his Doritos. You need those guys in those local MMA crowds. And no matter how good your matchups are, I don't think it's going to draw them unless you put a little, unless you bring out the ring girls, unless you bring out the smoke. I think you need all that to get those people into the events because they're accustomed to seeing it.
But what
right?
we also need is to get Middle America to quit looking at this sport as cockfighting, because it's still a problem, at least in the States. It's hard.
Absolutely.
Today, I want to give a big shout-out, actually, to Anna. I met her tonight right before we went live and gave her some of that great Draco Impact sports gear that they gave me to give out to. This girl works at a hospital. She's trying to become a pro fighter. She's working hard. But, like, her mom and dad and their friends won't have anything to do with her. Her coworkers, yeah, they think it's great. They buy tickets from her. They come support her. She's got a fight coming up on the 8th at Budo Fights, which we'll be there live covering like always, folks. But, she was telling me it's about 50-50 right now, because half her family and half her friends think it's this violent, grotesque sport. The other half think it's a beautiful athlete who's performing, for a crowd. So right now, to me, I understand where you're coming from, Rick, to get all the Zuffa zombies off their couches and wipe the Cheetos off their fingers and come out and support. But I think it's more about getting acceptance in the age range of 35 to 50 in America.
So how do you go about that?
A perfect example of that, Skippy, is like T.J. Britton. T.J., he also runs a ministry. And
very true.
That minute, pardon me?
That's very true.
And that ministry he runs over there, man, they put on concerts. I mean, it's just, I've been wanting to go so bad, and I will go one of these days. And, they put on special, it's usually Christian rock and stuff like that, but he's got a very large crowd that follows him, and, evidently they don't think it's, a barbaric type. I think he teaches them that, this sport is a competition just like any other sport.
Well, I mean, how many people?
They got one in Oklahoma, or in Shawnee, Oklahoma, that fights at Rage in the Cage. That All Now. They have a preacher and stuff that comes in there and says a prayer for the fights and stuff, and he runs.
Pastor Ken Curbo.
He's real familiar with that All Now training camp. And he's a preacher at the church, and I think them guys kind of, explain to people that this ain't a cockfighting, barbaric type sport. It's a competition. You got to train hard for it.
I have to disagree with you on this, because I don't think that's what the problem is. I think if there are people out there that are saying that, well, there's always going to be that group of people that are going to be against something, whether it's MMA fighting or tattoos or religion or whatever. There's always going to be a group of people that are going to say this is a stupid thing.
Absolutely.
So I don't
agree.
think I don't think you need to worry about changing their minds. I think the majority of people do understand, that are 50 and below, that this is a scientific sport. And I don't think it's viewed as like you believe on the mainstream now.
But, Rick, here's a prime example in Oregon, okay? Last year we had 4 total pro fights last year, okay? And we had 9 amateur events. We had 41 pro wrestling events. Okay?
Yeah.
We had over 30 pro boxing events. These people pack out almost every weekend. There's a boxing event here in Oregon somewhere. Okay, they go and they pack that place out. But, when Budo Fights because I'm using an example, or Dirty Boxer, or any of these guys that put on promotions here, when they go out looking for sponsorships and go out hustling tickets, it's not as easy. People are like, oh, that's cage fighting. But for some reason, boxing, pro wrestling, they're packing the houses out. And it's because that is just the way it is in America. It's accepted. MMA is still not accepted at a regional level.
But boxing has been around for generations and generations and generations, where
so is wrestling.
Cage fighting has only been around, since late 80s, early 90s?
Well, is it possible that, unlike any other sport, MMA came from the top down? So in other words, as you talk about pro wrestling being popular, but you got to remember that those little independent pro wrestling things ran for years and years and years on circuits before the big conglomeration of the WWE was formed. Mixed martial arts was completely opposite. It started bang right out of the blue with the big fight and the big Ultimate Fighter. It hit everybody out of left field. They didn't see it coming. And it now it's filtering down. Didn't it work just opposite for MMA as any other sport?
I see your point.
So people didn't grow up going to the local MMA fights. The MMA fights are just starting, and quite possibly they don't know how to do it right.
But wouldn't you assume with, especially here in the States, where judo tournaments, taekwondo tournaments, karate points tournaments have been a massively successful and hugely loved sporting event since the late 70s here. Guys like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and Bob Barrows and all those guys that we grew up with, the three of us, made those sports extremely popular here. So I just don't understand what the hesitation is to accept MMA.
Skippy, them sports are in the Olympics now, and therefore you got millions and millions of fans that watch the Olympics, that watch that. You know what I'm saying?
It's true. It's true. Look, this is what tonight was about.
It starts out as the fans. They watch that stuff in the Olympics, and and even on the World Cups and all that stuff, and they've already automatically got a fan base started. Where the cage fighting, it's not that sort of quotation popular as, because they don't get the television views like you would if you was in the Olympics.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is that suddenly UFC came on everybody's television, and it was the ultimate thing. But there were no MMA fights here to begin with. The UFC came first. There were, I guess, but
yeah, I know what you mean, though.
Yeah,
you're talking.
So I think that's what the problem is, and we got to have Peter Martell on the show again, because he did a newscast just before the UFC, or he did a little thing on the news or whatever. They interviewed him, and they unfortunately turned the entire situation. When that thing went on the air, it was cut up, and it wasn't what Peter was trying to say, and they turned it into do people not go to local MMA events because they think it's all rowdy people and fighting outside and blah, blah, blah? Is that the reason that people don't go to these local events? And we'll have him on. He can talk about that. But that may be one perception that keeps mainstream people away from going to these shows.
But, I got to believe that it's getting better because of the UFC, they've got UFC Tonight, comes on every Tuesdays. That's a big fan watches that and stuff. But now they also got on Access TV and NBC Sports. They're starting to televise more and more events like RFA, MFC, Lion Fight. And
well, there's a
starting to, it's got to start educating the people to where more and more people are watching. Do you think so, or?
Well, I think it's a promoter's responsibility. I really do. You can sit back and say, oh, geez, there's nobody coming to these shows, but there's a possibility that you're not doing things right if people aren't
Amen.
showing up to the show too. You know what I
Amen.
mean? So stop blaming everybody
exactly.
else and take a look at yourself and say, what am I not doing right? Because if there's people out there that don't know that these shows exist or are afraid that they're just drunken, rowdy fights, that's something that you've left out of your equation. You haven't explained that properly,
Rick.
in my opinion.
Look, that is something that I have harped on Bellator for the last 2 years, and you make a great point. Look, Bellator has great fighters. They have shitty hyping and promotion of their events pre- and post-fight. It is crap, and if you understand finances, Viacom is almost 3 times richer than the parent company of Station Casinos and Zuffa, the Fertitas Company, LLC, whatever it is, Zuffa LLC. Okay, there's a big difference financially there. I mean, you're talking, me versus Vince McMahon kind of money difference, okay? But the thing is, Viacom owns massive studios, graphics design firms. They own management companies that are made to hype and promote, advertising companies they don't use any of this. And Bellator's product hurts because they don't know how to advertise and push and promote their events. And that is something that is a problem on the regional level as well. I see too many events a week out, you don't even know a fight card. How can that possibly be that you cannot send me a fight card or post a fight card a week out? How is it that 3 days before your event, you make the first post about where the weigh-ins are, what time the doors open, where the tickets are? This kind of shit's got to stop, folks. You want to be successful 30 days out. Get your press releases to every media site you can get it to. If they don't post it, so what? If you get half of them to do it, the exposure rate is insane. Okay? Dude, this stuff where guys come, and put a fight card out the day of an event, that is crap. That's horrible advertising, not only for your sponsors, but for your fighters. You need to promote your events.
Yeah. And it comes down to you need to learn what puts asses in the seats. And the background that I come from, I think I bring some to the table when it comes to that because, I remember going into towns, and when these guys, when they do wrestling shows, when they're a poster in a town, every telephone pole in that town had a poster on it. They postered the town. You know what I mean? Everybody in the town knew about that event. We don't see that for mixed martial arts yet, and locally, and I'm not sure why, but maybe they should start looking at some of these tricks. You need to get out. You need to dig. You need to put people in the seats. They're not going to come on their own.
Hey, and let me jump back real quick before let Baker jump in. Back to what we were talking about, acceptance. We got a guy posting on tonight's show on the Facebook page. He says Olympics are different. Wrestling is the oldest sport and almost canceled out of the Olympics is what he's talking about. American society just wants football, basketball, or baseball. In Japan, it's martial arts. In South America and Europe, it's about football, which fills stadiums. Valid point.
Yeah, absolutely. It all at the end of the day, it all comes down to entertainment. Okay? Now, we're going to look at this a little different because we're involved in the sport. We can't look at it as fans. We can't. But we have to know what when they fill a football stadium, is everybody in that stadium a football player? No, they're not. So how do they get those other fans? How do they attract them? That's what local MMA needs to learn. How do I put people in those seats?
Hype. When you say that you got Manchester United going against Chelsea, the history, the hype. You got this captain who's on an amazing role taking on the legendary captain over here. Dude, I watch soccer. I watch the judo events. I watch Bukati or whatever it's called over in India where they hype it up and make you want to watch it. I mean, that's the thing. These guys know how to hype their product.
Well, have you ever seen, from where you are, a local promoter taking the fighters around, doing interviews, radio, television? Do you see any of that?
Yeah, Eddie Blackburn at Cage Quest. About the only person.
That's important because,
now,
what they always said in wrestling was if you didn't put people in the seats, don't blame the wrestlers. blame the promoter. And I'm not knocking on anybody here, but that's part of that job.
But that's very valid. Look, today's weigh-ins were supposed to be the chance for you to hype your sponsors, to meet the fans, to build up the excitement, to see the stare down before the fights. And today, weigh-ins are done so crappy. They're done in a hallway in some event center. There's a guy holding a banner up for 30 seconds and then in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. You know, and I'm going to give a prime example, and I'm using him again, and it's only because I believe in his product and what he does. But Eddie Blackburn, when he does his weigh-in, he sits every fighter at these long tables across from each other. And the crowd sits all around and watches each one get up. So the whole time they're staring each other down, sitting at the table. You can see guys dig into the table. It's insane. You think the fights are going to break out right there. And, you know, he could sell 1,200 seats at $25 a pop, and then another 300 wristbands at $20 a pop. You know,
see, I'm digging that, brother. I'm digging that because for a couple of reasons. That is, the weight cut is the single most difficult thing that the fight's easy after that. The weight cut is brutal. To see those guys, you know, and I've been on both sides of the table, you see those guys sitting there and how much they suffered, you got a whole new respect for it, and the place is volatile. Like, yes, that's a big promotion area that's not exposed or not exploited, let's put it that way.
I agree. You know, and that's that's a last. Go ahead, Baker.
I experienced that at the first V3 fight I went to. I went to the weigh-ins, and them guys, they just looked like freaking monsters, man. I mean, they were sitting across from each other, and they're like, I'm like, man, there's going to be a freaking ride in here in just a second, you know, until they get up there and weigh in, because, you know, they're so drained and so from not eating, cutting weight and stuff. I mean, it's like that place was so intense. That's the only place I've ever been that was that intense. And it was like, wow, man, I got to go around and, you know, talk to some of these guys, you know. But I was nervous when I was doing it, you know. But them guys, man, they were
fighter's point of view, I mean, you're on edge, you're tense, you're just in a zone that's difficult to explain. And, you know, I think if people got a little view of that, they would enjoy it. I think it's something that needs to be looked at, and I think people would be interested in the weigh-ins. It's an important time of a fight.
And look, let me jump in real quick, HR. You're right, and we have a fan comment again. Marketing, advertising, hyping equals a great event. MMA just wants its fighters to sell their events. Fighters should be training. Do you ever see NFL players trying to sell tickets?
Yeah, but we're talking the NFL, okay? Nobody in the NFL has to go and sell their own tickets. We're talking local MMA, and there is a certain responsibility on the fighters to put asses in the seats. And you may not like that fact, but it's the truth of the matter. If you can sell more tickets than another guy, if you can sell 50 tickets, and you have another fighter that's very similar to you, skill-wise, record-wise, the whole 9 yards, and he's not going to put any asses in the seats, I'll tell you right now what a good promoter, who he's going to pick. And that's just good business. So if you're part of this sport, people need to recognize this, is that you are entertainment, you are a commodity, and you need to bring some other things to the table. You don't have to, but it's going to help you if you do.
See, I was going to say, I don't think it's actually like an NFL team or NBA team. It's like the superstar of the team, like for instance, Kevin Durant for the Oklahoma Thunders. You know, he's got his big sponsorship with it was Nike, now it's Under Armour. You know, and I think that sells tickets just for him to come see his team play, because there's so many fans. That's Under Armour or Nike or Reebok.
If you're an MMA fighter, not fighting for the other big, the big organizations, but you're on a local circuit somewhere, and you have a weigh-in, okay? And when you go to your weigh-in, you should have invited your sponsors, You should have invited your friends, but most importantly, your sponsors. You want them there with you. That's the meet and greet time. That's the time that people are going to be shaking hands and talking and supporting their fighter.
That's the only time, Rick, that they're going to get a chance that until after the fight to be photographed with the fighter they're sponsoring and their gear with their logos. Once again, that's about advertising, marketing, and hyping, because that, let's say, it's Acadia Fish and Chips, and they show up, and they're like, hey, we're here because we're sponsoring Rick. He's going for the title. We're going to get photos with him. We're going to put them on our Facebook. Maybe a fan says, oh, I didn't know Acadia sponsored fighters. I'm going to go to this event. So it's important. You're right. It's very important to have your sponsors there if at all possible.
Now, ultimately, I believe that if you have a good organization, they should have somebody in that organization that is making that shit happen. But if they're not, the individual fighters have to take that responsibility on themselves and say, this is going to be good for me in the long run if I invite all of my sponsors to go to this weigh-in. I mean, they need to recognize that fact. If it's not being done for them or they're not being told that, they need to understand that it's important they do it on their own. That's my thought.
The person has to have the ability and the championship mode to be a champion to draw these people. For example, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Last year, they couldn't hardly fill the stands. This year, they got LeBron back. They're sold out. Season tickets you can't get. They're already sold completely out. I mean, the place is just packed already just because they got LeBron back, that one person. And, of course, LeBron, he performs. I mean, he's one of the top NBA players in the world.
But he also carries himself with a management firm and an advertising firm and guys who tell him the best way to market himself, the best way to make himself appealing to all people.
Yeah, that's kind of apples and once again, I think that's apples and oranges because we're talking the big leagues versus the low leagues, but or whatever we want to call it. But the point I'm trying to make is that it needs to be something that everybody is conscious of, because at the end of the day, it does help everybody. If you start involving as many people in this sport as you can, and the more people that see it, is the better. And I think it's something that needs to be developed, and individual MMA fighters need to recognize that that's part of it. And it's not always about who's the best fighter. That is nothing. I've never given a shit if I won or lost when I went into an MMA fight. It'd be nice to win, but I never really cared. As long as I was competitive, a fight's a fight. A W is only important if you're, when you look at your own record, or, if that makes you happy, or you have bigger aspirations. I didn't, so it didn't matter to me. But I was able to get sponsors just because of what I was doing. You understand what I mean? Was I the best fighter? Hell no. But there are people out there that you can approach and get on board and support what you're doing.
Yeah,
so
but
being the best isn't always important.
Yeah, but Rick, with you, whether you want to say, you're the best, in the middle of the road, or the worst, the way you train, the way you present yourself, the way you sell yourself, and the way you're loyal to your sponsors makes you an appealing, fighter to have on a roster for an event. Because I know what you're going to put into it. Once again, it's all about the hype, man. These people need to understand you got to build, you got to sell. It sucks, but, I would love to say I got the living legend himself, man, the multiple-time badass in multiple sports coming, Rick Doyle, he's on this card. He's my, co-main event or my opening, pro event, because I can sell you. I can take you, put you on a poster. I can put up all these accolades that you have through your lineage and say, boom, here he is, Come see this guy whether you like him or not.
It's a two-way street, too, is what I'm saying, is when you get a call from a promotion, you're going to go fight for them. They say, geez, we might be interested in having you fight. Before you start talking dollars and cents and money, which ultimately this does come down to in a lot of cases, if you can say, you know what, give me 25 tickets or 30 tickets, I can make sure those are sold for you. That's going to make a difference for you, trust me. And so it's kind of a two-way street. And then if a promoter says, hey, this guy is really into it, he's putting people in the seats, he is more likely to try to promote you out there as well, which ultimately helps everybody. I mean, I hate to say that this comes down to dollars and cents, but people running local promotions are not making millions of dollars. They're trying to make money as they can and survive. So if you can bring something to the table to help that process, everybody's going to win in the end.
I agree. Yeah, and with something today, we've been talking a lot about sponsorships. Another comment, financial sponsorships are becoming more and more rare. Nowadays, it's more about product sponsorships. And, last night we did a show actually in Southern California, our Sunday Night Fights live show. It was all about sponsorships. And, Lamar, from Relentless Ambition Clothing, he does do a financial sponsorship, and these days it's hard. So if you can get a sponsor to support you, whether it's paying your gym fees or, paying your rent or, even gear, we as fans have to support that fighter's sponsors. When we go to these local events, buy a T-shirt from the local T-shirt, guy that's selling it with one of the fighters on the card. Go to, Big Ed's Breaks, because the co-main fighter was sponsored by them, and get your breaks done there. Wherever it is, to help this sport continue to grow, to do like Rick said and put, thousands of seats in an ass, we've not only got to sponsor and support the event and the fighters, but the sponsors who show love, who are supporting us. You guys, Jack Cameron, I mean, right there, the guy is bent over backwards for multiple years. You need his services, go to him first.
Well, I'll tell you what I did on my last one there, and it worked out really well for me. So if anybody wants to consider it, like you said, Skip, things on rent, where you eat food, all these types of things. They're anything that will help you in your training, that you can get part of it covered by a company or an individual. It is sponsorship, and take advantage of it. What I found worked for me was when I was going to do my training camp, and let's say it was a 6-week training camp, I would find companies that, for whatever reason, might help me out in this, and I'd go to them and I'd say, listen, I'm going to start my training camp. It's going to be 6 weeks long. I'm looking for some sponsorship. If you can help me with my expenses, so either $50 or $100 a week. And most companies could spend out that little bit of money. It didn't financially cripple them. And, if you get a dozen of those or half a dozen or however many you get, you can do pretty well off your training camps. And what you got to do is give it 100% in that training camp. You need to update your sponsors on what you're doing and how your training camp goes. So you need to take time out of your day once a week to drive over to that company and talk to those people. And this is what I'm doing, and this is where I'm at. And you need to have a constant dialogue every week, because those people are putting their good money on the line to help you out. You need to keep them on the loop because they're on your team. And that I found worked for me.
Trustful relationship.
Yeah.
For sure.
Man, I tell you what, this is it, folks. I know some of you out there are going to listen to this replay and didn't get to hear it live. I want to apologize. Blog Talk is having problems throughout their whole network. I know about 50% of the people that wanted to listen are listening, because I'm getting a ton of comments and likes and retweets and all that stuff. So I can't believe, Rick, an hour's gone by. You want to spend a few more minutes talking, or you got to wrap it up?
No, I mean, I think I'm good. I mean, I hope we didn't bore the hell out of everybody here tonight. I mean, it was just babbling. My mind's
hey,
been...
Rick, I listen to you every week, man, and you are never boring. Trust me.
You should be at my place on the weekend, man. I sit here for hours and just babble. Oak Island really has my attention right now. You guys wouldn't know about this, but there's a little island off of Nova Scotia, and there's like look it up sometime, Oak Island, Nova Scotia. It's one of the biggest mysteries in the world, and there's a lot of shit going down on this island. They've been searching for treasure there for 200 years, and there's currently, like, on a daily basis, stuff going down there right now. And I've been following that pretty close. I spent like 4 hours talking to Freemasons on the weekends, because those buggers got their fingers in on this too, so... I've been pretty distracted.
I used to go cave hunting a lot, man, and just hope like heck I'd find a treasure from Jesse James. But I gave it up. I got too old. We got a lot of caves around here, and Jesse James used to come down through here, and Bonnie and Clyde.
So where are you at?
I'm in northwest Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Just 10 miles south of the Missouri line in the northwest corner.
Is that right? Yeah. There might
right
be
on
some
Table
of
Rock
that. Where isn't that supposed to be where some of that Confederate gold's hid down there too?
Yeah, man. That's where they had the big battle in Bee Ridge.
They're still looking for that, aren't they?
Yeah. They said that during that war you could hear them cannons all the way to Fort Smith, and that's like 80 miles away, 70 miles away. Back in the Confederate days.
Yeah, right on.
That's where my kids they all took their field trips. They'd always go over there, and I'd go over there with them, and it's pretty interesting.
Well, I want to give a big shout-out to all the great fans tonight who listened. Also give a big shout-out to Donald, CEO and founder of U.S. Elite Combat Management. Good guy, folks. Hit him up, follow him. Check him out if you're looking for management. He's a great guy, got a great mind on him, very passionate about the fighters and the sport. And I want to thank him tonight as well. HR, you know I always got mad love for you. I love what you do for us over at MMA Madhouse and covering the Midwest. And I do want to tell you one thing, go Royals. I hope your team sweeps it. I know that's important. That's
I'm in on that one too. Yeah, I'm going for Kansas City on that one.
Well, you see, you got two Missouri teams, and a lot of the St. Louis Cardinal fans, they've converted to Royals fans now.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, but, jumpers.
They're both from Missouri, so I'm actually a diehard Cardinal fan, but I've been watching the Royals, man, and I'll tell you what, I've become a Royals fan now, and I hope they win.
Yeah, it takes me back when I was younger, watching old George Brett and stuff, Yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Well, so, guys, Skip, overall there, you got some comments. I hope we haven't bored people too much. And, we're open to what this show can do, folks. I mean, Boyd's time is really tight these days, and he is obviously the greatest guy to have on this show, but he's kind of in and out. So we're open to any ideas here. So please just pass those along. And, Skip, if you've got any comments or anything that came through, or just let me know, man, because we're just
and I agree. To all the folks out there listening, friends, family, send us some ideas what you want to see with the show, maybe some guests or some topics, or if you want a guest host. If you think, maybe you got a killer BJJ scene or a great MMA scene and you just want to guest host the show and hang out and talk about what's going on in your neck of the woods, whatever, hit us up. We're open to some ideas. We're trying to, make sure that this show keeps burning the candle because, like you said, Boyd's just so busy and he can't always do this. Rick gets tied up with Fight Camp, and he's obviously a famous pro wrestler. Every girl's bothering him. It's hard for him to get time away, but we're all
I'm here. I'm ready to help out however I can. But honestly, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's far more capable of running this or keeping it going than I am. So there's no ego here. Just put her out there.
Oh, yeah, and I'll tell you what, I thought tonight, Rick, was a great show. HR, I mean, obviously a lot of fans enjoyed the conversation and the different aspects that we talked about tonight, and I want to thank all our great sponsors. We're going to go let Boyd out of our trunk so he can go home. Rick, I know what you're going to go do. I'm going to do the same thing. I believe HR is going to join us. So, everybody, you know how we end every show? Eagle!
Hello.
Amy, tell me you can hear me.
I can.
There we go. Oh, don't
Welcome to the BS Show. Are you ready to shoot the... The BS Show would like to thank their sponsors. Jack Cameron, accredited mortgage professional. Jack can show you the way home. Graco Impact Sports, providing top-quality combat sport equipment tested and used by all levels of athletes. Dominate your world. RepoSales.ca, specializing in vehicle and equipment recovery, liquidation, and sales. Hemmings House Pictures, the global movement media makers, helping tell your brand story to the world and accelerate the momentum of your movement. Farm Box Films, capturing stories the way you want to remember them.